There were times when the lower hamlet was shut down, by the government of France, because we did not meet the requirement. We was too poor. We could not build the road. We could not have the appropriate doors and so on. The kitchen is not in the norm, and they came and closed the lower hamlet. We did not suffer because we had our true home inside. If they come and burn your huts and chase you away, of course you suffer. But if you know how to go home to your true home, you will not lose your faith. You know that if your true home is still there, well, you will be able to build another home outside. Like we have rebuilt the village of Taluk 4 times. And if we need, we can build it for the 5th time and 6th time. But if you lose the home inside, well, there's no hope. The birthplace of Sister Chen Khong was the city of Bến Tre in the south. And one day they learned that a dozen communist guerrillas have penetrated into the town and set up anti-aircraft guns. And a whole bunch of American warplanes came because one plane just went by and was shot at. They did not hit the plane yet, but it reported that it was anti-aircraft guns in the city of Bến Tre. So other planes came that afternoon, and they bombarded and destroyed the town. Just because of about a dozen of guerrillas, and they destroyed the whole town that has so many inhabitants. And that was motivated by fear. Why are you were 500,000 soldiers. The American soldiers were about 500,000. And there was only about 12 communist guerrillas in the town. And the fear and the anger make them do that, to destroy the whole town. This is not intelligent practice. That will make the people become more anti-American. Because there is fear, there is anger inside that makes you lose your lucidity, your intelligence. And then the commander, the lieutenant who conducted the operation, when he was asked why they had to destroy the city of Bến Tre, he said, well, we had to destroy the city of Bến Tre in order to save it. That's the logic of the military. You had to destroy in order to save it. I was attending the international fair in Montreal, and I was speaking to about 10,000 youth, 10,000 people in the fair. And I remember I was saying something like, well, please liberate us from your liberation. You try to liberate us, but your liberation is destroying us. So we want to be liberated from your liberation. One night, they came to one of our work camps run by the School of Youth for Social Service, not very far from Saigon. It's on the river bank of Saigon, because we had sent about 10 workers to that village and helped to rebuild the village. And our social workers, including monks, were sleeping overnight because they had to be in the place for several months in order to help. Sister Cheng Khong was there in the afternoon, and she wanted to stay with the workers. Among them, there were four young monks. But finally, she was called back to the city because there was something urgent. If she had stayed there that night, she had been killed. They came to our place. They took 5 of us and they tied us up. They brought us to the river bank, the Saigon river bank. They asked us whether we belong to the School of Youth for Social Service. We said yes. And they said, sorry, we have to kill you. And they just pum, 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 pum. And 5 of us fell on the river. The other 5 were working in another place. We learned later that it is the work of the anti-communists. Because we were not approved by both the communists and the anti-communists. Because we did not want to sign up to take side of any warring parties. We want to build brotherhood. We want to follow the line of peace. We don't want to engage in one side in order to fight and kill the other side. We want to embrace both parties. And that is why every party suspects us to be with the other party. The communists came, they said, well, you have to go away. If you stay here, we cannot guarantee your safety. Because we were so kind to the peasants. We were so dedicated to our ideal of serving. So the peasants, they love us. They supported us. And the communist guerrillas, they don't like that. They only want them to be, they wanted all the sympathy to go to them. They control the situation at night, and the anti-communists control the situation during the day. So we were harassed by both the communists and the anti-communists. But we did not abandon our non-partisan, non-partisan stand, because that is our idea of service, non-discrimination. The communists were our brothers, the anti-communists were our brothers and sisters also. We don't want to kill our brothers and sisters. And in our peace movement, there was a time when we conduct a campaign for peace called "Don't Shoot Your Brother," because even they are communists, they are your brother. Even they are anti-communist, they are your brother. It's stupid to use foreign weapons to shoot each other. One of the 5 survived. He was seriously wounded, and they thought he was dead. In the morning, Sister Chen Kong came with her little car, and she discovered that all the workers were carried away. And finally, she discovered the dead bodies of the 4. There's a young monk who was shot in the belly, but he was able to survive. And we brought him to the hospital. He was able to survive, and he told us the truth, what was happened. We organized a ceremony, invited many people to come. And in the speech that we read in the ceremony is that, dear friends, you kill us because you thought that we were your enemy. We were trying to destroy you. But our intention is not to destroy anyone. We have been trained in order to love and to serve. We did not want the death of anyone, whether they are communists or non-communist, anti-communist. If you really understand us and understand our motivation, you would not have killed us like that. And we knew that they were there in the crowd listening. The second time, they came to our campus, School of Youth for Social Service, where we train young workers during the night. In the dorm, they threw grenades in it. And they even threw one grenade in my room. The one thrown in my room was returned outside because there was a curtain inside. And the attack made several people wounded. And one student worker died right away. Another social worker lost a limb and got 300 pieces of grenade into her body. Her name is Hương, Bùi Thị Hương. She's a native of Bến Tre also. I was in Paris, trying to call for the cessation of hostility. And we arranged that Bùi Thị Hương be brought to Japan for treatment. That night she was losing a lot of blood, and thanks to a Japanese lady who was a volunteer worker at the School of Youth for Social Service, that she got enough blood to survive. And when she was sent to Japan, they told us that they had tried to extract the pieces of grenade that in her body. They have extracted quite a few hundred, because there are so many of them. Because this kind of anti-personal grenade, they are supposed to be broken into so many tiny pieces in order to hit as many people as possible. And they could not remove all. There was still something like 100 of pieces in her body that could not be extracted. They leave them and they left them in the body of that young lady. It was cold in Tokyo, and she cannot use the electric blanket because if she uses the electric blanket and then she feels funny because there were metal piece of metals within herself. The communists fear that we are with the CIA, with the anti-communists. They suspect us. The anti-communists fear that we disguise communists. So, and they have fear, but they have also suspicion. They have anger. And almost everyone was acting on the foundation of fear, anger, and suspicion. And that is the war from within. There was an American soldier who is now a disciple of mine. His unit was caught in an ambush, and most of the people in his unit was killed in the ambush. He and a few others survived. He was so angry. He wanted to revenge. He wanted to punish. So he went to the village where the ambush took place with the idea to retaliate. And guess what he did? He brought along a few dozens of sandwiches. He put explosive in the sandwiches. And he left the bag of sandwich at the gate of the village. And he hid it himself. So that people who caught the sandwich, who are hungry, they would eat it and they would die. And that American soldier has become my student later on. And he saw 5 children coming out. And discovered the sandwich. And of course they were hungry. They ate the sandwich. And the American soldier, full of hate, full of idea of revenge, allowed the children to eat. How can you do that? The children were not guerrillas. They didn't have any weapon. They were not responsible for the ambush. And yet you identify with them with the guerrillas. So they belong to the same race. They belong to the same village. They need to be punished. Although they did not shoot me, but their father, their brother shoot me. That is why I have to shoot them. And then after having eaten the sandwich, the children began to twist, to cry, to yell, and their mothers came out, trying to find out what was happening. And the American soldier, hidden somewhere there, knew that there's nothing they could do in order to save the children. This is a very remote village. The nearest hospital is 300 kilometers away. There's no TGV, there's no airplane, there's no car. When he was released from the army, he went home with that image of 5 children agonizing. And his conscience did not allow him peace. That image stayed with him all the time. Whenever he found himself sitting in a room with children, he could not bear it. He had to stand up and run out of the room right away. And that stayed with him for several years. And he did not have the courage to tell the story to anyone except his mother. And his mother said, "My son, these things happen in situation of war, atrocities. This side hate the other side. This side is anger of the other side. And out of anger, out of hate, they can do anything. They can commit any atrocities. If you have not done anything, you try to help your people, and yet they shoot you. They don't allow you to go to the hospital. The children belonging to the other group, they have not done anything wrong, but out of your anger, frustration, you can use the blocks of stone and crush their faces. That's the kind of atrocities that take place always in a situation of war. I was offering a retreat for war veterans in Northern California. And he came. Many war veterans came with their psychotherapist. Because when they came home, they could not live peacefully. They carry all the suffering with them. There was one war veteran who did not dare to join us in walking meditation. Walking meditation can be nourishing and healing, but he did not dare. He didn't feel connected because we were walking very slowly like this. And remember, there were times when he was walking like this in the jungle of Vietnam, very carefully, because a bomb, a grenade can explode at any time. So when he was walking like that, everything came back to him, and he was scared. He could not do walking meditation. And at one point he said, well, why this monk from Vietnam was organizing a retreat? Maybe he's organizing an ambush so that he'll kill all of us. He could not kill us in Vietnam, so now he come to America, organize and retreat so that he can gather as many American war veterans as possible, and he will organize an ambush and kill all of us. So he stayed behind. And the walking group was going ahead and he stayed behind. He told himself, well, if anything happens, I can run. I still have time to run away. So he keep a distance of about 10 meters behind. And if anything that happened, like the sign of an ambush, and he will have enough time to turn and to run. He did not dare to stay in the dorms with us because he was afraid of an ambush. So he went to the wood and set up his tent. And he still was fearful, and that is why he set up around all kind of trap, so that if during the night anyone come, will be caught by the trap. Him a chance to speak out. Because if you cannot speak out, that will stay with you forever. And you are practicing compassionate listening. Dear friend, if you have anything in the heart that you have not been able to say, please tell now. This is a place to do it. He could not do for 2 days consecutive. It's very hard to tell such a thing. But finally, on the third day, he was able to bring himself to telling the story. And he cried. That evening, I invited him to my room. I said, okay, you killed 5 children. I recognize that. But why don't you see that you can save 5 children? You can do it today. Because there were children dying everywhere in the world, including in America. Because of violence, because of poverty, because of oppression. That child needs only half a dollar in order to have a tablet of medicine. And he can save. He died because he does not have half a dollar to buy the tablet of medicine. And you know that you can save 5 children a day. You have your intelligence, you have your education, you have facilities, you can go out and save children who are dying in this very moment. Why do you allow the past to overwhelm you, to imprison you, so that you cannot be alive in the present moment? In the present moment, where life is available, you can do things in order to repair the past. Because according to this practice, the past is still there in the present. And if you know how to touch the present, you can heal the past. Go out and save 5 children today, and you feel better. And that is exactly what he did. And he got the healing and became my student. In many re-education camps set up by the communists, my students practice sitting meditation and walking meditation. And sometimes they did not allow us to practice sitting meditation. Of course, during the day, as inmate of these re-education camps, where you have to work very hard, like a hard labor camps. You have to spend all your time, energy in working, so that you have no time to think of other things. You have to go and cut the wood. You have to build things. And then in the evening, you may have some time for yourself. And you want to practice some sitting meditation. You are intellectuals. You have learned sitting meditation and so on. But many gods consider that as a challenge. When you sit like that to be fully yourself, they see it as a challenge. I'm not afraid of you, I can be myself. So they did not allow you to practice sitting meditation. Because sitting meditation like that will radiate the energy of solidity. Because when you sit like that, you prove that you are yourself. You are not being carried away by your fear. And they want you to be constantly fearful of them. So sitting with a solid position is a kind of challenge. I am not afraid of you, although we do not want to show that, to say that. So you have to wait until they turn off the light in order to do sitting meditation. Many of us waited until the light is out in order to sit up, because that is our way to survive. I have arrived, I am home. Is your practice to survive. It's not a luxury. If you cannot be yourself, if you don't know how to handle the fear, the despair, the anger in you, you are lost. You cannot help any other people. You cannot help your people. You cannot help your country. Sister Cheng Khong and myself and other people was in Singapore in 1978, organizing a rescue operation for boat people. So many boat people were dying in the ocean. And Singapore had a very hard policy on boat people. Every time there was a boat carrying boat people to the shore, they try to push them out into the sea in order to die. They didn't want to host. And those fishermen who have compassion, who were able to save boat people drowning in the sea, were punished. They had to pay a very huge money or sum of money so that next time they would have no courage to save boat people. I went to Singapore with to attend a conference on religion and peace. And I discovered the plight, the suffering, the existence of both people. So I stayed on in order to secretly organize a rescue operation, because I knew that the government of Singapore did not want me to do that. And I had people from France, from Holland, and other countries in Europe to come and help me. And we hire a boat. We bring medicine, water, and food to the sea, and we try to rescue people. The policy of Singapore at that time was to reject both people. Malaysia also. And they prefer to have the boat people die in the ocean rather than to bring them into land and make them into prisoners. I sent a number of people to go along the coast of Malaysia, and they have this witness to so many tragic events. They had met with both people. There are those who just stare into space and we don't know what is happening. They could not believe that is the reality, that there are human beings living around them. It seems that people did not have a heart, did not have any sense of humanity. They came, 2 boats full of boat people, and the police forced them to go out. And then finally 1 boat capsized because the embarkation that they use is not very solid, it's not seaworthy. And all the people on the other boat saw the people drowning. And no one can swim to the shore. And that is why they determined to go in again, the boat who did not capsize. And after having landed, they destroyed the boat so that they would not be pushed out again. So the police had to bring them to a prison and waiting for them to bring another boat in order for them to be put on and to push into the sea. That is the common policy. Immediately, our friend called the press, the journalists, because the journalists are the only one that can save us. If the journalists know that there are both people that have been held, and if they take a few pictures and put it into the newspaper, and then the government of Malaysia did not dare anymore to push them out into the sea. That is one of the things we did in order to save the poor people. They were put into prison, but they are safe. The UNHCR, the United Nations High Commission on Refugees, UNHCR, United Nations High Commission on Refugees, was having an office there. They will be invited to come and take notes and take the names of refugees. And these refugees can maybe staying there for several years without having any chance to to be settled in another country. Because the UNSCA did not work diligently at all. And we discovered that there are so many boat people kept in the island, many islands, without any hope to be resettled, years after years. In Singapore, we had done something illegal. We went to the fisherman's house and we said that, well, anytime you rescue a boat person, you telephone us, we come and take them so you will not be punished. So we gave them our telephone. So from time to time, the fishermen will call us, and we use a taxi and went there and took the boat person. And then we used the taxi to go into town and to go to the French embassy. I have to say that the ambassador of France in Singapore, his name is Philippe Gassot, is a man of heart. He knew what we were doing. We came at night when the embassy was closed. So we took the boat person out of the taxi, and we helped them to climb into the compound of the embassy and tell him to wait there. And in the morning, the ambassador came with his personnel. They opened the gate and saw someone. And who are you? Well, I am a boat person. Someone brought me here. Please don't reveal our identity. Don't tell that a monk has brought you here. That someone just helped us here. And then the ambassador, he understood. He called the police. The police came and record the name of person and bring the person into the prison. That person is safe. Otherwise, the policy is to push them out and die in the sea. We did many illegal things like that. Finally, we were discovered. We had hired 3 boats, and our 3 boats are full of refugees, of boat people. Our intention is to sell them to Australia. To Perth, to Darwin. And we arranged so that the boat people will have enough water, medicine, and a little bit of pocket money. And we intended that when the boat was about to arrive, we will hold a press conference and say that, well, the boat people are coming, please don't push them away. That's the kind of thing that we used to do, see. But we did not speak about compassion. We tried to do the work of compassion. And there are things like that. We rent boat out into the sea, rescue people. We try by illegal ways to help the victims of discrimination. One night, the police of Singapore came and surrounded our office. They have discovered the underground network. You know, we did in our office. We did sitting meditation every morning. We did sitting meditation in evening. Because we need that. We need the spiritual dimension. so that we can be strong enough, compassionate enough to continue, because it's very difficult. At that time, there were 3 boatloads of boat people on the sea. And the government just discovered our network. So they arrest one of our boat. In fact, that is the 4th boat, not for carrying boat people, but to go back and forth and supply them with water and instant noodle and medicine. And that was caught. So our people were hungry, miserable on the 3 boats. And there was a storm. And our boat did not have the authorization to come and take refuge in the waters of Singapore, of Malaysia, because they wanted to die on the ocean rather than to come. I was sitting on the solid ground, but I was floating. Because my life was with the life of both people were the same, you see. Imagine you are responsible for the life of nearly 1,000 people, 300 in one boat, 400 in another boat, and so on. And there was a child being born in the 3rd boat, the Libdon. There was and I was in communication with that boat. It's so difficult. And if you don't practice sitting meditation, walking meditation, you become insane. You cannot be yourself, you cannot help. And that very night, my office was surrounded by the police. At midnight, they came and confiscated our passport. Sister Chen Kong was there, her passport, French passport, was confiscated also. I hold a refugee passport. And they gave us the order to leave the country in 24 hours. How can you do that? Why almost 1,000 boat people are still in your responsibility? Very difficult. So from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning, we all practice walking meditation. Walking meditation is not a luxury. In order to still be yourself, to find a way. And finally, at 4 o'clock, we got the idea. We said that we have to go to Philip Gasso. We have to ask him to intervene so that we can stay 10 more days to wind up the operation. And then we were out at 5 o'clock, but there was no taxi. And the embassy will open only at 9 o'clock. They were not in a hurry. They didn't have 1,000 more people to take care of. So we had more time to do walking meditation. And then we were there at the gate of the embassy when it opened, and we went in. And we talked to the ambassador, and he wrote a letter to the government of Singapore, intervening in our favor, asking them to allow us to stay 10 more days to wind up the operation. And then we wait until 11 o'clock to have that letter. No. Yes, almost 11 o'clock. And we run to the office of the Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. And when he got the letter, he had to convene a meeting of all the cabinet members. And we were waiting outside. And finally, they said yes. They said we should go right away to the Ministry of Interior, to the police headquarters, and had our visa renewed for 10 days. We had only 15 minutes in order to go there, because the deadline is drawing close. Because before that, they said that you go to the airport and before you climb into the plane, we give you back your passport. So we went through this kind of situations. And we know that if we don't have a spiritual dimension in our life, it will be lost. So dear friends, when you come here, you are not seeking for social, political support, because there is a tendency to speak about your suffering, your difficulties, so that you can get more people supporting you in order to fight the other side. That is a big temptation. If you are strong, you have more supporters, the other side will have to die, to withdraw. And that is the hope of many people. But we know that that kind of activities have been going on for many, many years. It have not brought any fruit at all. And Plum Village has a very different kind of approach. That we should have a real peace process. We should have a real roadmap for peace. And it should be based on our spiritual strength that is lacking in our leadership. So if you can bring peace into yourself, if you can bring solidity into yourself and your group, you may be able to influence your government. And together you can propose something that could be accepted. And that something is not just a treaty, a peace treaty, written only in political terms and military terms. The peace treaty in Plum Village is entirely based on your spiritual insight. And people who come to Plum Village, they always sign a peace treaty. You sign a peace treaty with yourself, because you may be at war with yourself. War is inside. You are making war to your body. You don't know how to take care of your body. You have made your body suffer a lot. You have destroyed your body with alcohol, drugs, and other things. Now you have to sign a treaty with your body. You have to sign a treaty with your feelings and emotions, with your fear, your anger. You should know how to go home to you and to take care of your anger, to take care of your despair. You have to make a peace treaty with them before you have some peace, before you can reconcile with your beloved one. If there is war in you, it's very easy to start a war with your beloved one. Not to say your enemy, because your beloved one can be your enemy, everyday enemy. The way you talk to her, the way you act, full of anger, full of violence. You are making yourself into an enemy. You are making your partner into an enemy. How can you hope to have peace in your country and with the other group? And that is why to sign a peace treaty with yourself and to sign a peace treaty with your beloved one is very important. In Plum Village, we have the text of a peace treaty. And many couples have come forward and signed a peace treaty in the presence of the whole Sangha. Dear one, I promise that from now on, every time I get angry, I could not say anything. I could not do anything. I would not be tempted by the desire to punish, because I know punishing can only make you suffer And if you suffer, you make me suffer. And if you can practice the peace treaty within yourself, if you can practice the peace treaty with your beloved one, and then there is hope. But if you cannot practice the peace treaty among yourselves, how can you make a peace treaty with the other group that are highly suspicious of you, that hate you so much? Father and son have to reconcile, have to sign a peace treaty. That is a practice, everyday practice. Dear one, I promise that from now on, I will not water the seed of anger and jealousy in you. I really promise. I promise only to water the seed of joy, understanding, and happiness in you. Please do the same. You know that I have a lot of anger, a lot of jealousy. Please don't water the seed of jealousy and anger in me every day. If you do, I will suffer, and you will have to suffer with me also. And this is a practice, not a statement. We all have the seed of wisdom in us. We know that punishing will lead nowhere, and yet we are always tempted to punish. When the other said something and did something that make us suffer, we want to punish her, to punish him, because we believe that punishing him or her, making him or her suffer, we get a relief. There are times when we are lucid, we know that this is childish, this is ignorant. Because when you make the other person suffer, she will try to get a relief also by punishing you back. And there is an escalation of punishment. And if you cannot stop that course of escalation between you and your beloved one, how can you stop that course of escalation with the other group of people, with the other nation? Mr. Sharon, he has the wisdom in himself. He knows that to kill Yasser Arafat is not for the profit of Israel. He has publicly stated so. Killing Arafat or exile him is not for the good, for the profit of Israel. You see, he had the seed of understanding, of wisdom. Mr. Arafat also, he has the seed of wisdom in him. But together with the seed of wisdom, there are other seeds. The seed of anger, the temptation to punish, the seed of despair. And then even between us, we don't agree with us. We don't agree. We are on the same camp. We are co-victims of the other side. We cannot get together. If you cannot reconcile among yourself, how can you reconcile with the other group? The Palestinians are divided. The Israelis are also divided. And that is why to reconcile with ourselves first in our group is very important. First, reconciliation should take place in yourself, and then with your beloved one, and then with your group. That is the real peace process. I have drawn yesterday the two circles. Before you can go to the other person and help him or her to transform, you have to go home to yourself. The usual approach is to begin with this, to go to the other person and ask him to change and force him to change. But this is not the real peace process. The real peace process is to go home to yourself and reconcile with yourself, to know how to handle the difficulties in you, to deal with despair, to deal with suspicion, to deal with fear and anger. And after that, you can go make the second step and help the other person. The other person will have to do the same. She has to go back to herself to learn to handle these things before you and her become a block. To help the third person, the fourth person, the fifth person. This is a real peace process. Can you help Mr. Arafat as a person? Can you help Mr. Arafat as a group? Are you solid enough? Do you have enough understanding, solidity, compassion to help him? He needs your help. And if you can practice as a Sangha, as a group of people, if you can express your wisdom, your understanding, your compassion, and then you be something. You be an element, a very important element in the process, in the peace process. You have to support Mr. Arafat, watering the seed of understanding, compassion in him, and encouraging him to maintain his wisdom, and help him to reconcile with himself and with his prime minister and other assistants. He might be very alone. He may be very lonely. And you are there to help him to feel less lonely. You can bring to him many elements of courage, of peace, of hope, of intelligence, so that he can recognize his group to be his best in order to engage in a real peace process. Mr. Sharon also and the present Prime Minister of Israel also. You should not leave him alone. Alone, he will feel lonely, cut off. He has to use only his own resources. You have to bring him your support, your resources, and helping him to water the best seeds in him. Because the seed of understanding, the seed of wisdom is there in everyone. Everyone knows that the escalation of violence will lead nowhere. Everyone knows, and yet in reality, the escalation of violence continues. Because that wisdom is not strong enough. It is being covered up by other kind of emotions. And that is why your practice is very important. You practice as a person. You practice as a community is very important. And you know something? The peace treaty between you and your beloved one can be transformed into a people peace treaty. What you promise to your beloved one. Darling, please only water the good seed in me. Please don't water the seed of anger, jealousy in me. I will do the same. I promise, when I get angry, I could not say anything. I could not do anything. I go home to myself, taking refuge in the island of myself, going to my true home in order to look deeply, to see what I have done in order to have created suffering like that. And I will ask you, why have you done such a thing to me? Why you have said such a thing to me that make me suffer? Please explain, please help. I don't want to punish you. I want you to explain to me why you have done such a thing to me, why you have said such a thing to me. And then I will listen to you. And please, darling, do the same. When you suffer, because what I have done, what I have said, please don't try to punish me. Please allow me a chance. Ask me why I have done so, why I have said so. Communication should be possible in order to remove, dismantle the war between two of us. Because if we are motivated by the desire to punish each other, there will be no end to the hostilities. There is no happiness in me, in you, and among us. That is a real peace treaty. Because we are victims of our wrong perceptions in our daily life. And that is why we should act in a hurry. We have to be careful not to act on the basis of wrong perception, on the basis of our anger and despair. We will spoil everything. There was a young man who was drafted into the army. His name is Trương. He's about 28. His wife was pregnant. And then they cried a lot when he had to go. But finally, he was able to be released from the army. He went home. So Mrs. Trương was so excited. Her husband survived the war and is going to come home tomorrow. So she went to the gate of the village with her little boy. They were born during the time he was absent. And when they saw each other, they cried so much in the arms of each other. How wonderful to survive and to go home and to be reunified with your family. And according to our tradition, you have to announce the good news to your ancestors. Because in my country, every home has an ancestral altar. If you are going to marry your daughter, you have to announce that news to your ancestor before you do so. If you are to send your boy to college, you have to announce that to your ancestors because they have the right to know. And that is why we burn a stick of incense every morning and we report to our ancestors everything. This is a practice called ancestor worship. No matter how poor you are, you should set up an ancestral altar in your home so that you can get in touch with your ancestors always rooted in your tradition, in your ancestors. That's part of the culture of our country. So the lady was told by her husband to go to the marketplace and do some shopping, so that they will prepare an offering to be placed on the altar to announce the good news of the return of the son. And meanwhile, Mr. Trương tried to persuade the little boy to call him daddy. Call me daddy. The little boy said, no, sir, you are not my daddy. My daddy used to come every night. My mother used to talk with him a lot every night. She cried a lot to talk to him a lot. And every time my mother sit down, he sat down. Every time my mother lie down, he lie down talk also. So when the young husband learned about that, all his happiness evaporated. He believed that there was someone who had intruded in his family. And he suffered so much, he became something like a block of ice. When the lady came home joyfully, he found her husband very cold, very remote. He did not look at her anymore. He did not answer her questions anymore. She suffered. She did not know what happened. And both of them suffered very much. And they did not know why and how. And they were punishing each other by withdrawing to themselves. After the offering had been prepared and placed on the altar, the man light incenses and prayed. And after that, he rolled up the mat and he did not allow his wife to pay respect to the ancestors. He thought that his wife had committed adultery, not qualified to present herself before the altar of ancestors. And his wife was humiliated. And after the ceremony, instead of sitting down and enjoy the meal of reunion, he left the house and spent the rest of his day in the liquor shop. His suffering was so huge. He wanted to drown his suffering in alcohol and did not come home until 2 in the morning and slept until 10 in the morning and left again for the liquor shop. And his wife could not bear it anymore. That afternoon, she jumped into the river and got drowned. She committed suicide. When the young father learned about the death of his wife, he came home and took care of the little boy. Night was falling, and he was searching for the kerosene lamp. And when he lit up the lamp, suddenly the little boy said, "Mister, he is my father, he's my daddy." So he pointed the shadow of his father on the wall. "You know, this is my daddy. He used to come every night, and my mother used to talk to him a lot, and she cried a lot. And every time my mother sat down, he sat down." That is the end of the wrong perception. There was no one intruding into the house, just the shadow of his mother, of the boy's mother. What really happened is that one day the boy went home very dirty, and he said, "Mommy, everyone in the village has a daddy. Why don't I have one?" It's a little bit too complicated for the mother to explain what is the army, what is the military service. So she just pointed to her shadow on one and said, well, here is your daddy. Say hello to him. Hello, daddy. And of course, she used to talk a lot to her own shadow. She was so lonely. My dear husband, you have been gone too long. How could I be alone raising our child? And she cried. And of course, when she sit down, her shadow will sit down also. Right understanding is now available, but it's too late. Mr. Trương is dead. If he had come to his wife and asked for her help, darling, how could you have done such a thing to me during my absence? Because the boy said that a man used to come every night. How could you have done such a thing to me? I suffer so much. Please explain. I need your help. I love you so. You don't have the right to betray me like that. You have to go to her and ask. But you are full of pride. You suffer so much. You prefer to suffer by yourself alone. That is why you have spoiled everything. And the lady committed the same kind of mistake. She suffered so much, but she did not come to him and ask, my dear husband, I suffer so much. Why do you treat me like that? Since the time I came home from the market, you did not look at me. You don't look at me. You don't answer any question of mine. Have I done something horrible to be deserve that kind of treatment? Please help. Please tell me why you behave like that. That is communication. Without communication, everything will ruin. And if the lady had done that, the husband will tell her why he behaved like that. You ask me why? The child said that every day someone came and you talk to him, you cry with him. Every time you sit down, he sit down. Every time you lie down, you lie down. That's why I suffer. That's why I did not want to look at you. That is why I did not want to answer your question. And if there was communication like that, Mr. Trương would have had a chance to explain. And there's no death. That is why between you and your beloved one, there should be communication. So that you can make sure that your perception is not wrong. And if you act on the basis of wrong perception, you ruin yourself, you ruin her, ruin him. Because both of you have the capacity to punish. And the more you punish each other, the more you suffer. And that is why both of you need a peace treaty. And next time when you suffer, darling, next time I suffer, and if I think that my suffering has been created to you, I will go to you and ask why you have done such a thing. I will not keep my suffering alone. I will not try to punish you, even by my silence or my remoteness, because you can punish by your being remote, by being cold, by your silence. This is also a retaliation, a punishment. Next time, darling, if I suffer, and if I think that you are the cause of my suffering, I will not try to retaliate, to punish. I will go to you and ask you why you have done such a thing to me, why you have said such a thing to me. So that we will not be victims like Mr. Trương and his wife. And this is part of the peace treaty. And if you succeed in that peace treaty, you have peace and happiness among you and your beloved one, whether that is your son, your daughter, or your partner. And if you succeed, you have a chance to sign a people peace treaty with the other group. You don't need to be two governments. You need to be a group of Israelis. You need to be a group of Palestinians who are wholly devoted to the cause of peace. And many people will support you, even some of the politicians. You can sit together and draw up a people peace treaty. And that will have a high education value for the whole country, for the two governments, and for the people in the world. And you know that many of us will come to your peace conference to learn about your people peace treaty. Don't wait don't just sit there and wait for your government. You have to do something. You have to be something. Be peace, be reconciliation, and you act from here, from now. If you succeeded in drawing up a peace treaty between you and your son, or your daughter and your partner, and you can live according to the peace treaty, peace is a reality. And if you can do it as a group, and then you shall have an enormous power. You can move the heart of so many people. You can open the heart of so many people. And you can come together in a peace conference, a people peace conference, and draw up a people peace treaty. And you have our support, the support of so many people who are very concerned, who want you excited to have your own country, your own home, and to live peacefully with each other. In the medical circle, nowadays, there is a saying that is very interesting. Because you should not hurry. You have to examine the patient very carefully before you draw a conclusion. You have to test, you have to listen before you prescribe a treatment. Otherwise, the treatment can kill that person. The saying is, even if you are sure, check again. Medically speaking, are you sure of your perception? If you are victim of wrong perception, you make you suffer for many years, and you make your beloved one suffer for many years. And the two groups, the Israelis and the Palestinians, may be victims of their wrong perceptions. We might believe that the other side only wish our destruction. The fact is that every side wants to have a chance to live in peace. Everyone has the wisdom that if the other side does not have peace, this side will have no peace either. That wisdom is there in everyone. And that is why there is hope. And with the practice, hope will grow. Despair will retreat. Compassion will grow. And anger will retreat. This is a very, very concrete and not abstract ideas. We have to run through all that. I do not speak in terms of theology, ideology. I speak from my own experience of suffering, of reconciliation, of war, and of peace. And I hope my friends here can feel connected with what I say. To know that walking, breathing, going home to our island is very crucial for hope to survive, for peace to have a chance. Every one of us is invited to join the walking meditation and to enjoy the picnic lunch at the Sơn Hà Temple on the foot of the hill.